The frozen figures. In 1981, a group of hikers set out on a winter trek through the remote Ural Mountains in Russia. They never returned. When a search party found their campsite weeks later, it was a chilling sight. Their tent was slashed open from the inside, and the hikers had fled into the freezing cold without proper clothing or shoes. Some were found frozen in the snow with strange injuries, fractured skulls, broken ribs, and in one case, missing eyes. Dubbed the Dyatlov Pass incident, investigators could never explain what terrified the group so much that they fled to their deaths. The Blizzard Strangers. In the 1990s, a young couple was driving home during a snowstorm in Montana. The blizzard was relentless and visibility was near zero. Suddenly, they saw a man standing on the side of the road, waving frantically. Against their better judgment, they stopped. The man claimed his car had broken down and asked for a ride to the next town. As he climbed into the back seat, the couple noticed he had no snow on his clothes or shoes, despite the storm. When they reached the town, the man was gone, though the doors had never opened. The Whiteout Cabin. In 1953, a man named Harold went to his family's cabin in northern Michigan to weather out a snowstorm. One night, he woke to the sound of knocking on the window. Thinking it was a neighbor in trouble, he opened the door to find no one there. This happened repeatedly over the next few nights, the knocks growing louder and more desperate. Finally, Harold spotted footprints leading from his window to the woods, but they were barefoot and stopped abruptly in the middle of the forest. The Vanishing Snowshoer. In 1936, a seasoned snowshoer named Thomas set off on a solo trek in the Adirondacks. When he failed to return, searchers found his trail until it suddenly ended in an open field of untouched snow. No footprints led away, no signs of a struggle. His gear was never found, and his disappearance remains unsolved to this day. The Icy Pond Mystery. In 1924, 3 children were skating on a frozen pond in a small Canadian town when they saw a figure under the ice, seemingly walking upright. Thinking it was a person trapped, they ran for help. But when adults arrived, they found no one under the ice. Local legends later tied the sighting to a man who had drowned in the pond years earlier, whose body was never recovered. The Snowbound Hotel. In 1987, a snowstorm trapped a group of skiers in a remote Colorado lodge. That night, they began hearing strange noises. Whispers, footsteps in the hall, and furniture moving in empty rooms. One skier claimed she saw a shadowy figure standing at the end of the hall, watching her. When the storm cleared, the group learned the hotel had been abandoned for years due to mysterious deaths that had occurred there in the past. The Ghost Train of Winters Creek. In the winter of 1910, a train derailed near Winters Creek, Wyoming, during a snowstorm, killing all aboard. Locals claim that on snowy nights, the sound of a train whistle can be heard echoing through the valley. Witnesses have reported seeing the faint glow of a locomotive's headlight, only for it to vanish as they approach. The Silent Village. In 1930, a fur trapper in Canada's Northwest Territories visited an Inuit village he often traded with. When he arrived, the village was eerily silent. Fires burned unattended, food was left on tables, and all the inhabitants had vanished without a trace. The only sign of life was a pack of sled dogs, frozen to death in their harnesses. Despite extensive searches, the people of the village were never found. The Black Ice Hitchhiker. In 1983, a truck driver traveling through a remote stretch of Alaska's highways picked up a hitchhiker who appeared out of nowhere in the middle of a snowstorm. The man spoke little but warned the driver to slow down due to black ice ahead. Moments later, the truck hit a patch of ice and spun out of control, but miraculously stopped just short of a steep ravine. When the driver turned to thank the hitchhiker, the passenger seat was empty and the door was locked. The snowy shadow. During a particularly harsh winter in a remote Alaskan town, a man reported seeing a shadowy figure lingering near his cabin. Despite the deep snow, there were no tracks leading to or away from his property. On several nights, he heard scratching at his windows but found nothing outside. Local legends speak of a spirit that stalks the lonely during long winters. Frozen in the ice. In the 1970s, a group of teenagers went ice skating on a frozen lake in Minnesota. One of them claimed they saw a face staring up at them through the ice. Terrified, they alerted authorities, who later discovered the frozen body of a missing person from a nearby town beneath the surface. No one could explain how the body had ended up there or why it hadn't been found earlier. The blizzard phone call. During a severe blizzard, a woman alone in her home received a series of calls, with only static on the other end. When she contacted the phone company, they said the calls were coming from her other line, in the basement. She didn't have a basement. The unseen guest, a family in New England, noticed strange happenings in their home one winter. Objects moved, doors opened on their own, and a child's toy train ran without batteries. One night, the mother woke up to see frosty handprints on the inside of her bedroom window, even though it was locked. A paranormal investigator later claimed the house was inhabited by the spirit of a previous occupant who died during a blizzard. Blizzard footsteps. In the early 1900s, a prospector in the Rockies was caught in a severe blizzard. As he huddled in a makeshift shelter, he heard heavy footsteps circling him, though no one else was around. When the storm cleared, he found enormous footprints in the snow, leading to and from his camp. Locals believed it was the snow beast, a mythical creature said to haunt the mountains. The silent skier. A group of friends on a ski trip in Colorado were shocked when they encountered a lone skier dressed in old-fashioned attire. The skier didn't speak even when addressed and disappeared into the trees without leaving any tracks. Later, they learned of a legend about a skier who had vanished in an avalanche decades earlier and was occasionally seen gliding through the snow. Frozen time. A couple driving through a snowy forest in Canada experienced their car breaking down late at night. While waiting for assistance, they noticed their watches had stopped at the exact same time. Their phones died simultaneously, and they felt an intense chill, even with blankets. Hours later, the car mysteriously started on its own, and everything returned to normal. To this day, they can't explain what happened. The frosty figure. During a winter storm in Vermont, a man claimed he saw a figure standing at the edge of the forest near his home. The figure was tall, with icy, glowing eyes. It never moved despite hours passing. The next morning, the figure was gone, but the snow where it had stood was melted, and the ground beneath was scorched. The Lost Lodge. A couple on a winter hike in the Appalachian Mountains stumbled upon an old, abandoned lodge. They decided to take shelter there for the night. As they explored, they found unsettling photographs of people with blacked-out eyes. That night, they heard whispers and footsteps in the halls. By morning, the lodge had disappeared, leaving them in an open field. Snowstorm voices. A man stranded in his car during a snowstorm in Montana reported hearing voices calling his name. He ventured out to investigate but found no one. The voices grew louder and more insistent, leading him deeper into the storm. Thankfully, a rescue team found him just in time, claiming he was mere feet from a cliff edge. Locals later told him of a legend about spirits luring travelers to their deaths during storms. The ice road vanishing. A delivery driver in northern Canada was traveling a desolate ice road late at night. He passed another vehicle parked on the side with its hazard lights flashing. When he stopped to check, the car was empty and fresh footprints led away from it into the snow. He followed them briefly before they abruptly ended in the middle of a frozen lake. The driver never saw anyone and hurried back to his truck, shaken. Hope you enjoyed and got your daily dose of horror. Subscribe and like for more. See you.